We don't want to see your face at her graduation. My mother's voice cut through the Zoom call, cold as steel, beside her digital square. My sister smirked while my father looked away. I did not cry or beg. Instead, I quietly revoked the one thing that made me useful to them, my control over the finances. They thought they were banishing me, but they did not realize they had just fired their personal bank. My name is Emma Ross, and I am 32 years old. I live in a frantic high-altitude city called Denver, where the air is thin enough to make your lungs work for every breath, and the mountains to the west always look like a backdrop painted for someone else's life. I work in fintech, analyzing risk, predicting crashes, and staring at rows of data until they blur into a singular truth about human behavior. I am good at spotting bad investments. I am efficient at cutting losses. Yet, as I sat at my mahogany dining table, a piece of furniture I bought to prove to myself that I was an adult who owned things, I realized I had failed to apply a single principle of my profession to the people who shared my DNA. The room was silent, save for the hum of my refrigerator and the aggressive, cheerful chime of the Zoom application launching on my MacBook. It was a Sunday afternoon. Outside, the Colorado sun was doing that deceptive thing where it looks warm but feels like ice. And inside, I was about to walk into a firing squad. The screen flickered from black to a grid of pixels. Connection established. There they were, the Ross family, arranged in digital boxes like a twisted version of a game show where the prize is trauma. In the top left square sat my mother, Diana. She was positioned perfectly in the center of the frame. The lighting in the living room back in Clearwater, Indiana, arranged to soften the lines around her mouth, lines that only deepened when she looked at me. She was wearing her Sunday best, a pastel cardigan that screamed suburban martyr, and her hands were clasped on the table in front of her, resting on a stack of envelopes. In the top right was my father, Paul. His camera angle was unflattering, looking up his nose slightly, capturing the ceiling fans spinning lazily above his head. He was looking down, fiddling with something off-screen, perhaps a pen or a coaster. He always found objects fascinating whenever conflict was imminent. He was present, but only in the biological sense. And there in the bottom center was Chloe, my baby sister. She was lounging back in what used to be my father's favorite recliner, wearing a sweatshirt that probably cost more than my weekly grocery budget. Her hair was freshly highlighted, a golden cascade that I knew with absolute certainty. I had paid for 3 weeks ago when she sent me a frantic text about an urgent self-care emergency. She looked radiant. She looked like the protagonist of a movie where I was the extra who gets cut in the editing room. There were other squares too. Aunt Linda and Uncle Mike had tuned in, their microphones muted, their faces expectant. They were the audience, the witnesses in my family. Humiliation was a spectator sport and attendance was mandatory. "Hello everyone," I said. My voice sounded steady, professional. It was the voice I used when presenting quarterly losses to a board of directors. "You're late," Diana said instantly. No greeting, no asking how I was, just an immediate identification of a flaw. "It is 2 o'clock exactly, Mom," I replied, glancing at the digital clock in the corner of my screen. "We have been waiting since 1:55, she countered, her tone sharp enough to cut glass. "But that is typical, isn't it? Everything has to be on Emma time." I saw Paul shift in his seat, his eyes darting to the camera lens for a fraction of a second before retreating to the safety of his desk surface. He knew this wasn't fair. He knew I was punctual to a fault, but he said nothing. He never said anything. "Let's just get to it," Chloe chimed in. Her voice had that lilting sing-on quality that drove me insane, a voice that had never had to ask for permission, only forgiveness, and usually not even that. "I have a brunch thing at 3. Diana nodded, validating Chloe's schedule as if it were a state affair. She shuffled the envelopes under her hands, picked one up, and held it to the camera. It was heavy cardstock, cream-colored with gold foil lettering. I could see the Redwood State University crest shimmering in the low resolution of the video call. "The invitations came yesterday," Diana announced. "They are beautiful, classy, just like we wanted." "They look great," I said. And I meant it. I should know. I had transferred the $2,000 for the printing rush order last Tuesday. "I assume the date is still the 20th. Diana lowered the invitation. She looked straight into the camera lens. It was a chilling sensation, making eye contact with a piece of hardware and feeling the weight of a human stare thousands of miles away. The air in my Denver apartment seemed to drop 10 degrees. "That is what we need to talk about, Emma," Diana said. Her voice changed. It lost the frantic edge of the lateness accusation and settled into something harder, colder. It was the voice of a judge delivering a verdict. "We have been discussing the guest list. Your father, your sister, and I." I saw Chloe smirk. It was a small thing, a slight twitch of the corner of her mouth, but on a high-definition screen it was magnified. She reached out and picked up one of the invitations, tapping the corner of it against her chin. Watching me, she looked like she had just won a game I did not even know we were playing. "Okay," I said, my stomach tightening, a familiar sensation, the physical manifestation of the Ross family dynamic. "Is there an issue with the seating? I know space is limited." "It is not about the seating," Diana said. She took a breath. It was theatrical. "It is about the atmosphere. This is Chloe's big day, her milestone. We want it to be perfect. We want it to be happy. I want it to be happy too." I said, "Do you?" Diana snapped. "Because every time you come back, Emma, there is drama. You bring a cloud with you. You ask questions that upset people. You make faces when we talk about money. You make your father uncomfortable." I looked at Paul's square. He was now aggressively examining his cuticles. "Dad," I asked, "do I make you uncomfortable?" He mumbled something unintelligible. "Now, Emma," was all I could make out. A non-answer, a surrender. "See," Diana said, triumphant. "You are doing it right now. Creating tension, putting him on the spot. This is exactly what I'm talking about. We cannot have this energy at the graduation. Chloe has worked too hard." I felt a laugh bubbling up in my throat, bitter and acidic. Chloe had worked hard. Chloe, who had changed majors 4 times. Chloe, whose GPA I had to monitor like a stock ticker. Chloe, whose entire academic career was floated by my bonuses and my overtime. So Diana continued, and here it came. The steel, the blade. "We have decided it is best for everyone." She paused for effect. She wanted this to hurt. She wanted to see me flinch. "We don't want to see your face at her graduation." The silence that followed was absolute. It wasn't a glitch in the connection. It wasn't audio lag. It was the sound of a door slamming shut in my face. A door I had spent 15 years trying to keep open with checks and wire transfers and desperate acts of service. I looked at them. Really looked at them. I saw Chloe leaning back, the smirk fully formed now. She held the graduation invitation up like a shield or perhaps a weapon. She wasn't looking at me with pity. She was looking at me with disdain to her. I wasn't a sister. I was an ATM that had started to malfunction, a resource that had become annoying. She had got what she needed, the degree, the status, the fully funded lifestyle, and now she wanted the photo op without the ugly reminder of who paid for it. I saw Paul, the man who taught me to ride a bike, shrinking into his chair. He knew this was wrong. I knew that he knew, but his comfort was priced higher than my dignity. He would rather let his wife amputate his eldest daughter from the family tree than endure one evening of Diana's cold shoulder. And Diana, my mother, her eyes were hard, devoid of anything maternal. She looked satisfied. She had asserted control. She had pruned the unwanted branch. It is just for the best, Diana added, breezing past the brutality of her previous sentence, as if she had just commented on the weather. You can stay in Denver. We will send you pictures. Honestly, it will save you the airfare. You can put that money toward the graduation gift. Chloe sent you the link for that car down payment. Right, the Volkswagen. Mom, Chloe whispered loudly. Don't bring up the car right now. Why not? Diana said, waving a hand. She is staying home. She saves on the flight and the hotel. It makes sense she helps more with the car. It is fair. My chest felt like it was in a vice. My heart was hammering against my ribs. A frantic drum beat of rejection. I wanted to scream. I wanted to list every dollar, every hour, every sacrifice. I wanted to hold up my own bank statements to the camera. I wanted to cry and ask why I wasn't good enough to stand in a gymnasium and watch my sister walk across the stage. But then something strange happened. The panic didn't rise. It crested, broke, and receded, leaving behind a clarity so sharp it felt like inhaling pure oxygen. I looked at the three of them, and for the first time in my life, I didn't see my family. I didn't see the people I needed to impress. I didn't see the people whose love I had to purchase. I saw a liability. I work in risk assessment. When an asset becomes toxic, when the cost of maintaining it outweighs the potential return, when the data shows a consistent, unyielding trend of loss, you don't keep investing. You don't hope it gets better. You cut it. You write it off. You close the account. Diana was still talking, filling the silence with her rationalizations. You know how sensitive you get, Emma. We just want a peaceful day. You can FaceTime in for the cake cutting if you behave. And really make sure that transfer for the party catering goes through by Monday. Okay. The caterer is nagging me. She was firing me. She was firing me from the position of daughter and sister, but she expected me to stay on as financier. She wanted the employee discount without the employee. I took a slow breath. I unmuted my microphone, which I hadn't realized I had muted. Emma, Diana said, her brow furrowing. Are you frozen, Paul? Is the internet acting up? I am here, I said. Well, Diana prompted. Did you hear me about the caterer? I looked at the camera lens. I imagined I was looking right into the center of Diana's pupils. I heard you, I said. My voice was soft. It wasn't the voice of the girl who begged for approval. It was the voice of the woman who managed million-dollar portfolios. You made yourself very clear, Mom. Good, Diana said, relaxing slightly. I knew you would be reasonable. It is just one day. Yes, I said. It is just one day. I leaned forward, resting my elbows on the mahogany table. But I want to make sure I understand the new terms of our arrangement, I continued. Chloe's smirk faltered slightly. What arrangement? I ignored her. I kept my eyes on Diana. You said you do not want to see my face. You said I bring a cloud. You said I am not welcome. Stop being dramatic. Diana sighed. I am not being dramatic. I said I am being precise. You are establishing a boundary. You do not want my physical presence in your lives during moments of celebration. Essentially, yes, Diana said, looking bored. God, you make everything a negotiation. It is a negotiation, I said, and I accept your terms. I reached out and hovered my finger over the end call button. However, I added, and I let the word hang there for a second, if you have decided that you do not want to see my face, then surely logic dictates that you should also stop seeing my name. Diana blinked. What? What are you talking about? My name? I repeated. On the bills, on the tuition checks, on the catering invoices, on the car lease paperwork, on the mortgage supplement for the house you are sitting in. The room in Clearwater went deadly silent. Even the ceiling fan above Paul's head seemed to slow down. Chloe sat up straight, the invitation dropping from her hand to her lap. Emma. Diana laughed. a nervous, brittle sound. Don't be ridiculous. We are family. We help each other. No, I said family shows up for each other. You just fired me from showing up. You can't fire the person and keep the paycheck. Mom, that is not how employment works, and it is certainly not how family works. You can't do that, Chloe squeaked. Her voice was an octave higher than usual. The graduation party is in 3 weeks. The deposits are due. That sounds stressful, I said, keeping my face completely blank. I hope you figure it out. Since I won't be there, I assume I won't be needed to sign the checks. Emma Ross. Diana's voice rose to a shriek. If you dare. Goodbye, Mom. I said, have a lovely graduation. Send pictures. Emma, wait. Paul shouted, finding his voice for the first time in 20 years. We don't want to see your face. I repeated Diana's words back to her, tasting the iron in them. So you won't? I didn't wait for their response. I didn't wait to see the color drain from Diana's face or the tantrum Chloe was about to throw. I tapped the red button. The window vanished. The digital grid collapsed. The screen went back to my desktop wallpaper. A serene, high-resolution image of a mountain range I could see from my actual window. The apartment was quiet again, but it wasn't the heavy, lonely silence of 5 minutes ago. My heart was still racing, thumping a frantic rhythm against my ribs, but my hands were steady. I looked at the black reflection of the screen. I saw my own face. It looked pale, tired, but relieved. I sat there for a long moment, letting the adrenaline wash through me. I knew what they were doing right now. Diana was screaming. Chloe was crying. Paul was probably pouring a drink. They were scrambling, trying to call me back. My phone was already vibrating on the table, buzzing with the first of what would surely be 100 desperate notifications. I reached out and turned the phone over, face down. For years, I had treated them like a high-interest loan I could never pay off. I kept making payments, hoping the principal would go down, hoping eventually I would be free. But today they had handed me the foreclosure notice. They thought they were evicting me. They didn't realize I had just decided to walk away from the mortgage. I stood up and walked to the kitchen. I needed a glass of water. And then I needed to open my laptop again, not to call them back, but to log into my banking portal. I had a lot of recurring transfers to cancel. To understand why I sat in that Denver apartment with a racing heart and a finger hovering over the nuclear option on my bank account, you have to understand Clearwater, Indiana. It is a town that sounds like a brand of bottled water, pure, transparent, refreshing. That was exactly the image the town council and the homeowners association worked tirelessly to maintain. It was a place where lawns were manicured to within an inch of their lives, where church attendance was socially mandatory, and where the most dangerous thing that could happen to you was being the subject of a whisper campaign in the produce aisle of the local grocery store. The Ross family fit into Clearwater like a key in a well-oiled lock. From the sidewalk, we were the American dream manifested in brick and vinyl siding. We had the 2-story colonial house, the American flag that never touched the ground, and the annual Christmas card photo where we all wore matching sweaters and smiled as if our jaws were wired that way. But inside that house, the air was different. It was heavy. It was thick with a specific kind of pressure that I now recognize as the weight of unvoiced expectations. My mother, Diana, was the architect of our reality. In another life, she might have been a general in the army or a campaign manager for a ruthless politician. In Clearwater, she was the head of the PDA, the treasurer of the church social committee, and the unofficial mayor of our cul-de-sac. She did not just parent us. She curated us. To Diana, love was not a feeling. It was a performance review. It was a system of metrics and deliverables. My father, Paul, was her silent partner. I often think of him as a piece of load-bearing furniture. He went to work at the insurance firm from 9 to 5, came home, ate dinner, and retreated into the television or the garage. He was a man who had learned early on that the path of least resistance was to simply stop existing as an independent entity. If Diana was the storm, Paul was the basement you hid in, safe, perhaps, but dark and utterly disconnected from the world above. He did not protect me. He simply modeled how to surrender. The dynamic between my sister and me was established before Chloe could even walk. I was 7 years older. In most families, 7 years is just an age gap. In the Ross family, it was a caste system. I was the draft horse. Chloe was the show pony. It started with small things, the kind of subtle conditioning that rewires a child's brain without them noticing. When we played, I was told to let Chloe win because she was smaller. When she broke something, I was scolded for not watching her closely enough. I was not raised to be a sister. I was raised to be a third parent, an auxiliary staff member whose job description was to smooth the road ahead of Chloe's delicate feet. I remember clearly the year I turned 16 in Indiana. Getting your driver's license is the first real taste of freedom. I had spent the summer working 2 jobs, one at the Dairy Queen and another shelving books at the library, saving every dime for a car. I managed to buy a rusted 10-year-old sedan from the school janitor for $1,200. It smelled like old coffee and motor oil, and the heater only worked if you hit the dashboard in a specific spot. But it was mine. I brought it home, beaming, expecting some kind of acknowledgement of my industry. Diana looked at the car, wrinkled her nose, and said it would be an eyesore in the driveway. She told me I had to park it on the street around the corner so the neighbors would not think we had fallen on hard times. 3 years later, Chloe turned 16. I came home from college for the weekend to find a brand new cherry red convertible sitting in the driveway. It had a giant white bow on the hood. The paint was so shiny it hurt to look at. Isn't it perfect? Diana gushed, her arm around Chloe's shoulders. Chloe was squealing, dangling the keys, looking like the queen of the prom. It is beautiful, I said, forcing a smile. How are you guys affording the payments? I thought Dad was worried about the roof repairs. Diana's expression hardened instantly. We make sacrifices for things that matter. Emma, Chloe needs a reliable vehicle. We cannot have her driving around in a death trap like yours. It is about safety. Safety. That was the word she used. But I knew the truth. It was about image. Chloe in a convertible fit the brand. Emma in a rust bucket did not. Later that night, Diana came into my room. She sat on the edge of the bed, her voice dropping to that conspiratorial whisper she used when she needed something. Emma, honey, she said. The insurance on a sports car for a teenager is higher than we expected and gas prices are going up. I stared at my textbook, my stomach tightening. I knew what was coming. Since you are working so many shifts at the campus bookstore, she continued, smoothing the duvet cover. We thought maybe you could help out just with Chloe's gas card. It is important she has mobility for her extracurriculars. You know how colleges look at extracurriculars. I am saving for my next semester's textbooks. Mom, I said quietly. Family helps family, Emma. She said, her voice sharpening just a fraction. We are all pitching in. Your father is working overtime. I am cutting back on groceries. You need to do your part. Don't be selfish. We don't abandon each other. That phrase, we don't abandon each other, it was her favorite weapon. It sounded noble, biblical even. But in Diana's mouth, it was a shackle. It meant that my resources were communal property, but Chloe's needs were individual priorities. I paid for the gas. I paid for it every month for 4 years. I filled the tank of a car I wasn't allowed to drive so my sister could go to parties I wasn't invited to. Also, my mother could tell her friends that the Ross family was thriving. This pattern bled into everything. When I brought home a report card with straight A's, the response was a distracted nod. That is good, Emma. Now, can you go over Chloe's history essay? She is struggling and we cannot have her GPA drop. My success was treated as a utility, something useful only insofar as it could be harvested to patch the holes in Chloe's performance. I was the safety net. Chloe was the trapeze artist. I was expected to catch her, but no one was watching me to see if I hit the ground. There is a specific memory that stands out, a moment that crystallized my role in the family architecture. I was 22, freshly graduated, and back home for a few weeks before moving to Denver. I was sitting on the back porch, hidden by the trellis of climbing ivy my father had dutifully planted. Diana was in the garden with Mrs. Higgins from next door. They were drinking iced tea, their voices carrying in the humid summer air. "Chloe is just so spirited," Mrs. Higgins said. "She is going to be a star." "But what about Emma? Is she excited about her new job?" I held my breath, waiting for my mother to brag about me. I had landed a competitive position at a financial firm. I was moving to a big city. I had done everything right. "Oh, Emma," Diana said, her tone dismissing the subject with a wave of her hand. "Emma is sensible. She is the sturdy one. I never have to worry about her. She knows her duty. Honestly, she is like a second husband to me sometimes. She handles things so I can focus on getting Chloe launched." I sat there frozen, a second husband, sturdy, sensible. She did not describe me as smart or talented or kind. She described me as a beast of burden. She was proud of me, yes, but not in the way a mother is proud of a child. She was proud of me the way a farmer is proud of a tractor that starts every morning without complaint. I was a machine that processed anxiety and produced solutions. I was valuable because I was useful. And Chloe was the launch. Chloe was the investment. I was just the operating capital. That afternoon, I went upstairs and packed my bags. I left for Denver 2 days early. I told myself that distance would fix it. I told myself that once I was across the Mississippi River, once I had my own apartment and my own zip code, the dynamic would shatter. I was naive. I did not understand how modern banking worked. I did not understand that emotional abuse does not require proximity. It only requires a routing number. When I got to Denver, I threw myself into my career. I worked 80-hour weeks. I climbed the ladder at Harborline Metrics faster than anyone in my cohort because I had been training for this my entire life. I knew how to anticipate the needs of demanding authority figures. I knew how to fix problems before they became disasters. My boss loved me for the same reasons Diana did. I was low maintenance and high output. But instead of freedom, my salary became a fresh blood supply for the vampire back in Clearwater. It started with loans that were never repaid. Then it became emergencies. The furnace broke. The roof leaked. Chloe needed a tutor. Chloe needed a laptop. Chloe needed a deposit for an apartment because the dorms were too distracting. Every time I hesitated, the guilt trip was immediate. "After all we did to raise you," Diana would say over the phone, her voice thick with manufactured disappointment. "We gave you everything, Emma. Now that you are successful, you are going to turn your back on us, on your sister." I was making 6 figures, yet I was eating ramen noodles and shopping at discount stores because I was sending $2,000 a month to Indiana. I was living in a scarcity mindset while funding their abundance. I convinced myself I was being a good daughter. I told myself I was the hero of the story, the benevolent provider. I didn't realize I was just the mark in a long con. The family I was saving didn't exist. It was a corporation and I was the only shareholder who was putting money in while everyone else was drawing dividends. Leaving Clearwater hadn't broken the cycle. It had perfected it by being far away. I became an abstraction to them. I wasn't Emma, the girl who looked tired and needed a hug. I was just a notification on a banking app. Transfer received. And like any good financial analyst, I should have seen the crash coming, but I was too busy looking at the data through the lens of loyalty instead of logic. It would take a few more years and a much deeper betrayal for me to finally look at the ledger and realize that the column labeled family was actually labeled fraud. Harborline Metrics is the kind of company that prides itself on disrupting the status quo while adhering to the most rigid corporate structures imaginable. Our office in downtown Denver is an open-plan cavern of glass and polished concrete designed to encourage collaboration but mostly resulting in everyone wearing noise-canceling headphones to preserve their sanity. I sit in a pod with 3 other senior analysts surrounded by dual monitors that glow with waterfalls of real-time data. We track market volatility. We build risk models. We predict the future based on the spending habits of the past. My life at Harborline is defined by precision. If a decimal point is out of place in a quarterly projection, I lose sleep. If a client's portfolio shows signs of instability, I draft a mitigation strategy before lunch. I am good at this. I understand the language of money, how it moves, how it grows, and how easily it can evaporate if you are not paying attention. But for the first 5 years of my career, I was completely blind to the hemorrhage in my own ledger. To my family back in Indiana, my job title translated to exactly one thing: infinite liquidity. They did not see the 60-hour work weeks. They did not see the taxes, the 401k contributions, or the exorbitant rent that comes with living in a city where tech bros have inflated the housing market. They saw the salary figure I foolishly mentioned once over Christmas dinner. And in their minds, I became the family venture capitalist. It started the week I received my first signing bonus. It was a modest amount, $5,000, meant to help with relocation costs. I was staring at the number in my bank app, feeling a rare moment of security. When my phone rang, "Emma, we are so proud of you." Diana's voice was bright, bubbly. It was the tone she usually reserved for when the pastor came to visit. "Thanks, Mom," I said, leaning back in my mesh office chair. "It is a lot of work, but I think I am going to like it here." "I am sure you will. You have always been the worker bee," she said. Then, without missing a beat, the pivot came. "Speaking of good news, did Chloe tell you she got into Redwood State?" "That is great," I said, though I felt a prick of hesitation. Redwood State was out of state. It was expensive. I thought she was going to the community college for the first 2 years. Well, that was the plan. Diana sighed, the brightness dimming into something fragile and victimized. But the program at Redwood is just perfect for her. And honestly, Emma, after how hard school was for her with the anxiety and everything, we just want to give her a fresh start, a chance to really shine. I knew what was coming. I could feel it in the silence that stretched between Denver and Clearwater. "The thing is," Diana continued, "the tuition deposit is due Friday, and with your father's hours being cut back last month, things are a little tight. We were wondering, since you just got that bonus." She let the sentence hang there, unfinished. It was a masterclass in manipulation. If I said no, I was hoarding wealth while my father struggled and my fragile sister was denied a future. If I said yes, I was the hero. "It is just a bridge loan, honey," she added soothingly, "just to get her started. Once she graduates, she will be working. She will pay it forward. You are investing in the family." Investing in the family? Sounded so logical, so corporate. "Okay," I said. "How much is the deposit?" $1,200, she said quickly. I transferred the money 10 minutes later. I felt good about it. I felt capable. I was the big sister who had made it, reaching back to pull the ladder down for the next generation. I bought into the fantasy that this was a one-time transaction, a momentary boost to get the Ross family machine over a speed bump. I was wrong. It wasn't a speed bump. It was a cliff. By the time Chloe's first semester began, the bridge loan had expanded to cover her meal plan, then her textbooks, then a technology fee that turned out to be a new iPad because her old laptop, the one I had bought her 2 years prior, was apparently too heavy to carry across campus. The requests did not come with thank you notes. They came as administrative tasks. My phone would buzz on a Tuesday morning while I was in the middle of a risk assessment meeting. A text from Diana tuition bill came. Forwarding to your email. Handle this, please, so she does not get a late fee. No. Hi. How are you? No. Is this a good time? Just a directive. Handle this. I would excuse myself. Go to the break room and log into the university portal. I had the login credentials memorized better than my own social security number. I would stare at the total $18,000 for the semester and feel a cold knot form in my stomach. That was my savings for a down payment on a condo. That was my emergency fund. But then the internal voice would start. The voice Diana had installed in my head since birth. She is your sister. You can afford it. Do not be greedy. Do not be like those people who care more about money than blood. So I would click pay now, and in return I got to watch Chloe's life unfold in high definition on Instagram while I was eating a sad desk salad for lunch trying to decipher a complex spreadsheet. Chloe was posting photos of bottomless mimosa brunches. Living my best life. The caption would read, while I was staying late on a Friday to impress my VP, Chloe was posting stories from a music festival I had effectively sponsored. She wore outfits that cost $300. She tagged her friends. She tagged the location. She never tagged me. The cognitive dissonance was staggering. I was living like a broke college student so that my college student sister could live like a trust fund baby. I drove a used Honda Civic that rattled when I hit 60 mph an hour. Chloe drove a leased SUV that I helped make payments on because the snow at Redwood can be dangerous. I shopped at Target. Chloe shopped at boutiques that didn't put price tags on the clothes. My colleagues at Harbor Line were starting to buy houses. They were talking about diversified portfolios and vacations to Cabo. I was talking about nothing. I couldn't tell them that my discretionary income was being funneled into a black hole in the shape of a 20-year-old girl. The humiliation of it hit me hardest on a random Thursday in November. I was sitting in the break room reheating leftovers. Ben, a senior analyst who sat 2 pods over, was waiting for the coffee machine to finish its grinding cycle. Ben was nice. He was normal. He had a wife and a golden retriever and boundaries. Hey, Emma, he said, nodding at my laptop screen. Working through lunch again. Just clearing some personal admin, I said, quickly minimizing the window. But I wasn't fast enough. Ben's eyes had caught the logo on the screen, the maroon and gold crest of Redwood State University, and the confirmation banner payment successful, $4,200. He whistled low. Ouch! Tuition payments? I didn't know you were back in school getting an MBA. No, I said, feeling my face heat up. It is not for me. Ben looked confused for a second. Then his face softened into a sympathetic smile. Oh, got it. You have a kid in college. You look way too young for that. Must have started early. Huh? The air went out of the room.
No, istamarat.
No kids. It is for my sister.
Ben blinked.
The coffee machine hissed, filling the awkward silence. Your sister? Wow, that is generous. Your parents must be thrilled to have the help. Yeah, I said, my voice tight. They are. My brother still owes me $20 for a pizza from 2015. Ben joked, trying to lighten the mood. I can't imagine dropping $4,000. You are a saint, Emma. He grabbed his mug and walked away, leaving me alone with the humming refrigerator. You are a saint. I didn't feel like a saint. I felt like a sucker. I looked back at the screen. The payment confirmation number stared back at me. It was a receipt for a service I would never receive, for a degree I would never hang on my wall. I thought about the email I had received from Diana that morning. It hadn't even been a full sentence, just a subject line. Textbooks needed ASAP and a link to the university bookstore cart. The total was $650. I realized then that I had become a specialized employee for the Ross family. I was their accounts payable department. I was the silent partner who provided the capital but had no voting rights on the board. I opened the bookstore link. I saw the list of books. Introduction to Fashion Marketing, Social Media Strategies, History of Art. I looked at my own work on the other monitor, Complex Risk Modeling for a Volatile Market. I worked so hard to understand the value of things. I spent my days calculating return on investment. Yet here I was pouring capital into an asset that showed zero appreciation, zero gratitude, and zero yield. I clicked checkout. I entered my credit card number. It was muscle memory. My fingers flew across the keys, typing the 16 digits, the expiration date, the security code. I didn't do it because I wanted to. I didn't do it because I love them. I did it because I didn't know who I was if I wasn't the person who fixed things. I had been programmed to believe that my worth was directly tied to the transaction confirmation screen. The screen flashed green. Order processed. I closed the laptop, took a bite of my lukewarm pasta, and stared out the window at the gray Denver skyline. I wondered if Chloe would like the books. I wondered if she would even open them. Most of all, I wondered how long a person could bleed before they finally went cold. The erosion of a soul does not happen all at once. It is not an earthquake that splits the ground beneath your feet, swallowing you whole in a single and dramatic moment of catastrophe. It is water dripping onto a stone. One drop, then another, then another. For a long time, the stone looks exactly the same. Feels solid. Feels permanent. But if you look closely, if you run your thumb over the surface, you can feel the depression forming. The smooth, concave evidence of a million tiny impacts that have slowly worn the structure away. For me, the realization that I was being hollowed out came in small, sharp moments during my visits back to Clearwater. I told myself I was going home to recharge, to connect with my roots. In reality, I was returning to the scene of a crime where I was both the victim and the person scrubbing the blood off the floor. It was Thanksgiving break, 2 years into Chloe's time at Redwood State. The air in Indiana was gray and bitten with frost, a stark contrast to the crisp, sunny cold of Denver. I had driven a rental car from the airport because Paul claimed his truck was acting up, and Diana said her sedan was too full of groceries for the holiday meal to pick me up. I didn't mind. I was used to arranging my own transit. I walked into the living room, shaking the cold from my coat. The house smelled of sage and roasting turkey, a scent that triggered a Pavlovian response of guilt and duty in my brain. Chloe was sprawled on the beige sectional sofa, surrounded by shopping bags, not grocery bags, retail bags, the glossy, thick paper kind with rope handles that whispered of high margins and exclusivity. She looked up, her face flushed with excitement. "Emma, you made it. Look what Mom got me for surviving midterms." She reached into a dust bag and pulled out a purse. It was a structured leather tote, a designer brand that I knew from my days of window shopping in downtown Denver. Retailed for somewhere around $3,000. I froze, my hand still gripping the handle of my battered carry-on luggage. "That is nice, Chloe," I said, my voice sounding thin. "That is really nice, isn't it?" She hugged the bag to her chest, inhaling the smell of new leather. "All my friends at the sorority have them." I was feeling like such a loser walking around with that canvas tote. Now I finally look like I belong. She set the bag down and looked at me, her eyes bright and utterly vacant of any understanding of value. "God, I am so glad I don't have to work like some of those other girls." She laughed, a light tinkling sound. "My roommate Sarah, she has to work at the campus coffee shop at 6 o'clock in the morning. She always smells like burnt milk. It is gross." I told her, I don't know how you do it. I would die. Thanks to you, I don't have to deal with that trash. It is so boring. The words hit me like a physical slap. Thanks to you, she wasn't thanking me. She was acknowledging my function. I was the reason she didn't have to smell like burnt milk. I was the reason she didn't have to know the fatigue of a 6 as Samnam shift. Diana walked in from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a dish towel. She saw me staring at the bag. Don't look like that, Emma, she said, her tone breezy, but carrying a warning edge. Chloe has had a very stressful semester. She needs to focus on her grades, not wiping tables. You went to school. You know how hard it is. Besides, you are working now. You understand the value of time. I worked through college, Mom, I said quietly. I worked at the library. I worked at the diner on weekends. Exactly, Diana said, nodding as if I had just proved her point. And remember how tired you were. We don't want that for Chloe. We want her to have the full experience. You are giving her the gift of focus. It is noble, Emma. She turned back to the kitchen. Now come help me mash the potatoes. Your father is useless with the mixer. I stood there for a moment, looking at Chloe, who had already lost interest in me and was taking a selfie with the bag. I was not a sister to her. I was a utility provider. I was the electricity company. You don't thank the power grid for keeping the lights on. You only notice it when the bill is overdue. That night at dinner, the performance continued. We had Aunt Linda and Uncle Mike over along with 2 neighbors I barely remembered. The dining room table was set with the good china, the gold-rimmed plates that were only used when Diana wanted to impress someone. The conversation inevitably turned to the children. Uncle Mike bragged about his son's new job in construction. The neighbors talked about their daughter's engagement. Then Diana cleared her throat. She placed a hand on my forearm, squeezing it just a little too hard. We are just so blessed, she announced, beaming at the table. Chloe is thriving at Redwood, top of her social class, involved in everything, and Emma here well. Emma is our rock. The table murmured appreciatively. I tried to smile, but my face felt stiff. Emma handles everything, Diana continued, pouring gravy over Paul's turkey. She is so successful out in Denver. High finance, very important work. She takes such good care of her sister. Honest to God, I don't know what we would do without her generosity. She just loves to give. It is her love language. I looked at Paul. He was staring intently at his green beans, chewing rhythmically. He knew. He knew that generosity was a euphemism for coercion. He knew that my love language was actually a survival mechanism I had developed to avoid being emotionally exiled. But he said nothing. He took a sip of water and let Diana rewrite history. It must be nice to have a big sister like that, Aunt Linda chirped, looking at Chloe. Yeah, Chloe said around a mouthful of stuffing. She is the best. It was said with the same casual tone one uses to praise a reliable internet connection. She is the best, not she is kind. Not she works hard, just she functions as intended. The cracks widened a month later at Christmas. I had spent weeks agonizing over what to get Chloe. I wanted to give her something practical, something that would actually help her studies, not just her social standing. I decided on a high-end laptop. It was a significant expense, almost $2,000, taken from the meager savings I had managed to scrape together after paying her tuition. I told myself it was an investment in her education. On Christmas morning, we gathered around the tree in the living room. The fire was crackling. Bing Crosby was crooning from the speakers. It was picture perfect. Chloe tore into the wrapping paper. When she saw the silver box, her eyes lit up. No way, she squealed. You got me the new model. She ripped the box open, lifted the lid, and then stopped. Her face fell. It wasn't a subtle shift. It was a complete collapse of enthusiasm. "Oh," she said. "What?" I asked, leaning forward from my spot on the floor. "What is it?" "It is the 13 inches screen," she said, her voice flat. "Yes," I said. "It is the portable one. It fits in your backpack easier. It has the fastest processor they make." Chloe looked at the machine with disdain, as if I had handed her a calculator from the dollar store. "But the 15 inches is the one everyone has for design class. This one is tiny. I can't do my layouts on this." "Emma, it is practically a tablet." My chest tightened. "Chloe, that is the best laptop on the market. I use the same one for my data modeling. It is incredibly powerful," she sighed. A heavy, dramatic exhale and set the laptop down on the carpet. "I mean, thanks. I guess it is just I thought you knew what I needed." I felt tears pricking my eyes hot. Angry tears. I opened my mouth to say something to tell her she could take it back and buy her own damn computer. But Diana intercepted me. Now, Diana cooped, swooping in. She patted Chloe's knee. "It is a lovely gift, Chloe. Don't be rude." She looked at me, her expression soft and pitiable. "She is just under a lot of pressure. Emma, the design program is very visual. She probably just had her heart set on the bigger screen." Diana paused, then smiled brightly. "Tell you what, you use this one for this semester, Chloe. And next Christmas, Emma can get you the upgrade, the pro version, right, Emma? We can treat this as a starter laptop." I stared at my mother. She had just committed me to spending another $3,000 a year from now to fix a mistake that was actually an incredibly generous gift. She had validated Chloe's ingratitude and turned it into a future obligation for me. "Right?" I whispered. "Next year," I excused myself, claiming I had a headache. I went upstairs to my old bedroom. Standing there, surrounded by the faded posters of bands I used to listen to in high school, I felt a profound sense of dislocation. The room was exactly as I had left it. Yet, it felt like a museum exhibit dedicated to a person who no longer existed. My high school diploma was still hanging on the wall near the closet. It was crooked. A layer of dust had settled on the top of the cheap plastic frame. I reached out and wiped my finger across the glass, leaving a clean streak through the gray film. Downstairs, I could hear them laughing. I could hear the rustle of paper as Chloe opened more gifts. Gifts that Diana and Paul had bought with money freed up because I was paying for everything else. Later that night, unable to sleep, I went down to the kitchen to get a glass of water. The house was dark, but a light was on in the den. I heard Diana's voice. She was on the phone, likely with Aunt Linda again, dissecting the day's events. I stopped in the hallway, pressing myself against the wall. I shouldn't have listened. I knew that, but I couldn't move. "Oh, I know," Diana was saying, her voice low and confidential. "Chloe can be a bit demanding, but she is the baby. You know how it is. She needs more handling." There was a pause as she listened to the person on the other line. "Well, thank God for Emma." Diana laughed softly. "I don't know what we would do without her checks. But honestly, Linda, that is how it should be. We raised Emma to be independent. We raised her to be the provider. The older child is born to support the younger. That is the natural order. Emma is strong. She can take the weight. Chloe is delicate. She is meant to be looked after. The older child is born to support the younger." The words hung in the cold hallway air. It wasn't that they loved me less. It was that they categorized me differently. I wasn't a person to be cherished. I was a structural beam. My purpose was to bear the load so that the beautiful, delicate architecture of Chloe's life wouldn't collapse. I stood there in the dark, clutching my glass of water until my knuckles turned white. A terrifying question formed in my mind, one that I had been avoiding for years. If I stopped paying, if I stopped being the beam, Am I still part of the house? Or would they demolish me? I crept back upstairs without getting my water. I sat on the edge of my twin bed, staring at the crooked diploma in the moonlight. I thought about my savings account, the one labeled future home, which had stagnated for 3 years. I thought about the house I wanted to buy in Denver, a place with big windows and a garden where I could grow my own vegetables, a place that was mine. Every time I transferred money to Redwood State, I was stealing a brick from that future house and handing it to Chloe to throw away. I looked at the diploma again, Emma Ross. It was just a name on a piece of paper, but to them it wasn't a name. It was a signature on a check. I realized then that the pain I was feeling wasn't just sadness. It was the stretching of a tether that was about to snap. I didn't know when it would happen or what would finally break it. But as I laid back on the pillow that smelled of old dust and neglect, I knew one thing for certain. I could not afford this family anymore. Not financially and certainly not emotionally. It was a Tuesday afternoon in Denver when the illusion finally shattered. The day had started with the banal rhythm of corporate life coffee, emails, a strategy meeting about quarterly forecasts, and a salad eaten over a keyboard. I was deep in a spreadsheet calculating risk exposure for a client's real estate portfolio when my phone vibrated against the desk. It was a notification from my bank app. Not the usual transfer successful alert I got when I sent money to Indiana. This one was red security alert. Unusual activity detected on card ending in 4098. I frowned, tapping the screen. Card 4098. I didn't use a card ending in 4098. My primary credit card ended in 1120. My debit card ended in 5567. I had to dig into my mental archives to even remember what that account was. Then it clicked. It was an old emergency credit card I had opened right after college. A just-in-case line of credit with a high limit that I had kept active but dormant for years. The physical card was sitting in a fireproof box in my closet, still glued to the paper it came on. I unlocked my phone and logged into the banking app. My breath hitched. The balance wasn't zero. It was $4,87216. I stared at the number, blinking, assuming it was a glitch. I refreshed the page. The number remained, mocking me in bold black font. I immediately dialed the customer service number on the back of my primary card, my heart hammering a frantic rhythm against my ribs. "Thank you for calling Chase," a polite automated voice said. "Please enter your account number." I navigated the menus with trembling fingers until I finally got a human being on the line. "Security department, this is Marcus. How can I help you?" "Hi, Marcus," I said, my voice steady despite the panic rising in my throat. "I just got a fraud alert for my card ending in 498. I think my identity has been stolen. I have the physical card in my possession and I haven't used it in 3 years." "Okay, let me pull that up," Marcus said. I heard the click-clack of a keyboard. "I see the alert here. We flagged a transaction attempted 10 minutes ago for $500 at a luxury spa in Redwood City, California." Redwood City, I repeated. The name landed like a punch. That was where Chloe went to school. "Yes, ma'am." Marcus continued. "That transaction was declined due to suspicious patterns, but looking back, I see a series of approved transactions over the last 6 months. Do you recognize a charge for Nordstrom on October 12th for $300?
No, iwisparat.
How about Golden State Resort Spa on November 4th? $850? No, a charge for Tiffany Co. on December 20th. A bracelet looks like $400. My stomach turned over. December 20th. That was 5 days before Christmas. While I was agonizing over buying her that inadequate laptop, someone had used my name to buy jewelry. "Marcus," I said, gripping the phone so hard my knuckles turned white. "Can you tell me, do you have a shipping address for any of the online purchases?" One moment, he said. Yes, most of the online orders from Sephora and Revolve were shipped to an address in Redwood City. 442 Pine Street, apartment 3B. I closed my eyes. That was Chloe's off-campus apartment, the one I paid the deposit for. And Marcus added, I see a few earlier transactions from about a year ago shipped to a generic address in Clearwater, Indiana. Looks like a residential home. My parents' house. Okay, I said. The word sounded hollow. Okay, Marcus, I need you to freeze that card immediately. Done, he said. Do you want to dispute these charges as fraud? I need to check something first, I said. I will call you back. I hung up. I didn't want to hang up. I wanted to scream, but a terrifying thought had just occurred to me. If they had access to this dormant card, what else did they have? I opened a new browser window on my work computer. I felt like a detective in my own life, peeling back the floorboards to find the rot underneath. I logged into my main credit card portal, the one I used for my daily expenses. I scrolled past my own purchases, groceries, gas, utilities. Then I clicked on the tab labeled Authorized Users. There were two names listed under mine. Chloe Ross, Diana Ross. I stared at the screen, my mouth going dry. I had never added them. I had never authorized cards for them. I clicked on the usage history for Chloe Ross. It was a catalog of excess. Uber Eats orders at 2:00 a.m. Uber rides to nightclubs. A recurring monthly subscription to a high-end gym in Redwood City called Equinox. A subscription to a blow-dry bar. I clicked on Diana Ross. Her history was different but equally damning. Weekly grocery runs at Whole Foods and Clearwater bill totaling $300 each time, gas station Phillips, a recurring payment to a local hair salon, and most gut-wrenching of all, a recurring payment to a liquor store. They weren't just asking me for money, they were siphoning it. They had issued themselves cards on my account, likely intercepting the mail when I visited or using my social security number, which Diana obviously knew to request them over the phone. I felt a wave of nausea so strong I had to put my head between my knees. Emma. I snapped my head up. It was my boss Sarah standing at the entrance to my cubicle. You look pale. Everything okay?
Fine, I croqued.
Just something I ate at lunch didn't agree with me. Go home if you need to, she said kindly. You have been working too hard. I might, I said. Thanks, Sarah. As soon as she walked away, I opened the portal for Redwood State University, the tuition portal, the one place where I thought my contribution was legitimate. I navigated to the profile section. Student Chloe Ross, primary financial contact, Emma Ross. That looked normal, but then I looked closer at the contact details. Email emmarossfinances@gmail.com. I blinked. That wasn't my email. My email was emmaross88@gmail.com. I opened a new tab and typed in the strange email address. It didn't exist in my password manager. I had never created it. I looked at the phone number listed under the contact. It ended in 4455. That was Diana's cell phone number. They had created a shadow email account using my name so they could receive all the financial notifications, all the bills, all the alerts without me seeing the details. They had routed the communication through a filter controlled by my mother. I was shaking now, a cold, violent tremor that started in my hands and spread to my core. I went to the Documents tab in the university portal. There was a file uploaded 6 months ago labeled Financial Responsibility Agreement signed. I downloaded the PDF. It was a standard university form. A legal document stating that the undersigned agreed to be fully liable for all tuition fees and penalties incurred by the student Chloe Ross for the duration of her enrollment. I scrolled to the bottom of the page. There on the signature line was a digital signature, Emma Ross. It wasn't my handwriting. It wasn't even a good forgery. It was a generic cursive font generated by a computer. Beside it was a timestamp and an IP address. I copied the IP address and pasted it into a geolocation tool. Location Clearwater, Indiana ISP, Comcast cable. My parents' house. My mother had sat at her kitchen table, perhaps sipping her morning coffee, and she had digitally signed a legally binding document in my name, effectively handing me a bill for tens of thousands of dollars without my consent. She had committed forgery. She had committed fraud, and she had done it with the casual ease of someone signing a permission slip for a field trip. I sat back in my chair, the office noise fading into a dull buzz. This wasn't just family helping family. This wasn't me being the good big sister. This was a criminal enterprise. I was not their daughter. I was their identity theft victim. I thought about the bridge loan for the first semester. I thought about the gas money. I thought about the guilt trips, the tears, the we don't abandon each other speeches. It was all a cover, a smoke screen to keep me compliant while they picked my pockets. They had calculated exactly how much they could steal without me noticing. And when that wasn't enough, they stole my name to get the rest. A strange calm settled over me. It was the calm of the dead, or perhaps the calm of the executioner. The confusion was gone. The hurt was postponed. In its place was a cold, hard diamond of clarity. I reached for my mouse. Okay, I whispered to the empty air. You want to play with numbers? Let's look at the numbers. I started printing. I printed the credit card statements for the last 3 years. I highlighted every transaction that didn't happen in Denver. I printed the university unauthorized signature page. I printed the authorized user list from the credit card portal. I printed the fake email address profile. The stack of paper grew on my desk, warm and heavy. It was a dossier of betrayal. It was the physical evidence of my own stupidity and their malice. I picked up a highlighter, neon yellow, bright and aggressive. I started slashing through the lines. Sephora, $210. Liquor World, $85. Redwood Campus Store, $600. Equinox membership, $180. Page after page, thousands of dollars. Tens of thousands. I saw a charge for a spring break package. Cabo San Lucas on the card ending in 4098. $2,000. I remembered that week. I had stayed in Denver working overtime to cover a tuition surcharge Diana had told me about. I had eaten frozen dinners while Chloe was drinking tequila on a beach in Mexico, paid for with a credit card I didn't know I was carrying. I looked at the total sum at the bottom of my spreadsheet. It was enough for a down payment. It was enough for a wedding. It was enough to start a business. It was my life, converted into their leisure. I took the stack of papers, put them in a pristine manila folder, and labeled it Ross Evidence. I stood up, put on my coat, and walked out of the office. I didn't tell Sarah I was leaving. I didn't say goodbye to Ben. I walked to my car, got in, and locked the doors. I sat there for a long time staring at the folder on the passenger seat. For the first time in my life, I saw my name on a document, hundreds of documents, and realized it didn't belong to me. They had colonized my identity. They had occupied my financial existence like a hostile army. But looking at that folder, I realized something else. In their greed, they had left a paper trail. They had been arrogant. They thought I would never look. They thought I was too conditioned, too guilty, too desperate for their love to ever check the math. They were wrong. I wasn't just a daughter anymore. I was an auditor, and the audit was about to begin. The impulse to scream is a primitive one. It is a biological release valve designed for moments of acute physical pain or terror. When I discovered the full extent of the financial hemorrhage in my name, the urge to pick up the phone and scream at Diana until my throat bled was overwhelming. I wanted to hear her stutter. I wanted to hear Paul's pathetic excuses. I wanted to hear the fear in Chloe's voice when she realized the free ride was over. But I did not pick up the phone. I work in risk management. In my world, emotion is a liability. Reaction without strategy is just noise. If you find a structural failure in a bridge, you do not stand there and yell at the concrete, you close the road, you bring in the engineers, and you assess the damage report. I sat in my car in the parking lot of Harborline Metrics for another hour. The sun dipped below the Rockies, casting long, cold shadows across the asphalt. I wiped my sweaty palms on my slacks, took a deep breath that rattled in my chest, and started the engine. I did not drive to the police station. I drove home. When I walked into my apartment, I did not turn on the lights. I walked straight to my desk, opened my laptop, and created a new folder on my encrypted hard drive. I named it Ross Financial Reality. The name felt clinical, felt safe. For the next 6 hours, I was not a daughter, a sister, or a victim. I was an auditor conducting a forensic reconstruction of a crime scene. I started with the unauthorized credit card. I downloaded every statement from the last 3 years. I created a spreadsheet with columns for date, merchant, amount, location, and likely user. November 14th, the Tipsy Goat Bar and Grill, Redwood City, $140. That was Chloe. December 3rd, Liquor World, Clearwater, Indiana, $85. That was Diana. January 10th, Chevron Gas Station, Clearwater, $60. That was Paul filling up his truck on my credit. I cross-referenced these dates with my own calendar. On November 14th, I was in a quarterly review meeting in Denver. On December 3rd, I was buying groceries at my local King Soopers. On January 10th, I was asleep. Then came the digital forensics. I logged into the university portal again. I navigated to the Account Activity tab, which logged every login attempt. It was a feature designed for security usually ignored by students, but it was a goldmine for me. I saw the IP addresses. I used a simple online tracer login February 2nd, 2 p.m. IP location Clearwater, Indiana. Action change of contact email. Login August 15th, 9 a.m. IP location Clearwater, Indiana. Action accept student loan terms. My mother had not just signed me up to pay. She had logged in as me to accept federal loans that were now AcreWing interest in my name. I printed everything. The printer hummed rhythmically in the quiet apartment, spitting out page after page of betrayal. By the time I was done, I had a physical stack of paper 2 in thick. It was heavy. It had mass. It was undeniable. The next morning, I went to work early. I didn't go to my desk. I went to the 4th floor to the compliance and legal department. I knocked on the glass door of David Chen's office. David was the head of internal fraud investigations for Harborline. He was a man who looked at embezzlement schemes the way other people looked at crossword puzzles. "Emma," he said, looking up from his dual monitors. "You are up here early. Everything okay with the client portfolio?" "The clients are fine," I said. I closed the door behind me and sat down. "I have a hypothetical question. David, about identity theft." David took off his glasses. He looked at me, really looked at me, and saw the dark circles under my eyes, the tightness in my jaw. "Hypothetical," he repeated dryly. "Let's say an individual discovers that a third party has opened lines of credit in their name, accessed secure accounts, and forged digital signatures on federal loan documents." I said, "And let's say the IP addresses confirm the location of the perpetrator." "That is not a hypothetical," David said. "That is a felony." "Who is it? A boyfriend? An ex? Family?" I said. The word tasted like ash. David winced. It was a small professional wheeze. The kind a doctor gives when they see a break that will require surgery. That makes it messier emotionally, but legally it is the same. Fraud is fraud. "Emma, the law does not have a but she is my mother exception clause." He wrote a name and a number on a sticky note and slid it across the desk. Elena Vance, he said. She is not corporate. She specializes in domestic financial abuse and identity recovery. She is expensive, but she is a shark. Call her today. I called her from my car at lunch. She fit me in at 4 o'clock. Elena Vance's office was not in a glass tower. It was in a restored brownstone in a quiet part of the city. The interior was lined with books and smelled of old paper and aggressive competence. Elena herself was a woman in her 50s with steel gray hair cut into a sharp bob and eyes that could seemingly read the fine print on your soul. I laid the folder on her desk. Ross Financial Reality. She put on her reading glasses and opened it for 20 minutes. The only sound in the room was the turning of pages and the ticking of a grandfather clock in the corner. She didn't gasp. She didn't shake her head. She just read. Finally, she closed the folder and took off her glasses. You have been very thorough, she said. Her voice was low and calm. Most clients come to me with a hunch. You have brought me a conviction. Is it enough? I asked. To make it stop. Emma, she said, leaning forward. This is not a dispute. This is a criminal enterprise. We are looking at wire fraud, mail fraud, aggravated identity theft, and forgery in the state of Indiana. And federally, these are prison time offenses. Prison, the word hung in the air. I thought of my mother in an orange jumpsuit. I thought of Chloe, pampered, useless Chloe behind bars. I felt a spike of nausea. I don't know if I want to send them to jail, I whispered. I just want to be free. I want my name back.
Elena nodded.
She had heard this before. That is the trap, isn't it? They bank on your conscience. They use your love as the getaway car. But you need to understand the terminology of what is happening to you. This is financial exploitation. It is a form of domestic violence. They have assaulted your future to finance their present. She picked up a pen. Here is the reality. You have two paths. Path A, we file a police report. We hand this folder to the FBI. Your credit is scrubbed clean within 60 days because it is proven fraud. Your family likely faces indictment. She paused. Path B. We treat this as a hostile corporate takeover defense. We sever every link. We lock down your identity so tight that air cannot get through. We inform the institutions, the bank, the university that the charges are disputed and unauthorized. We do not press charges immediately, but we hold the threat of criminal prosecution over your family's head like a guillotine blade. If they try to take one more cent, you drop the blade. Path B, I said immediately. Smart, Elena said. It is faster, but it requires you to be ruthless. You cannot waver. If they call crying, you hang up. If they threaten you, you record it. Can you do that? I thought about the unemployed comment. I thought about the graduation invitation I wasn't allowed to attend. I thought about the car I drove versus the Carlo drove. I can do it, I said. Good, Elena said. Then let's get to work. First step, we kill the access. The next 3 days were a blur of digital violence. I did not sleep. I sat at my computer and systematically dismantled the infrastructure of their theft. First, the passwords. I didn't just change them. I nuked them. I used a random generator to create 40-character strings of nonsense that no human could guess. I changed the password to my email, my bank, my retirement fund, my social security portal, then the two-factor authentication. I bought a hardware key, a physical USB stick that had to be inserted into my computer to authorize a login. Even if Diana had my password, even if she guessed the name of my first pet, she could not log in without the physical key in my hand in Denver. I logged into the credit card portal. I clicked Remove Authorized User next to Chloe's name. Are you sure? The screen asked. I clicked Yes. I clicked Remove Authorized User next to Diana's name. Are you sure? Yes. I called the credit card company and reported the card ending in 4298 as compromised. I did not say stolen by family yet. I just said compromised. They can lead it immediately. Somewhere in Indiana. A piece of plastic in my mother's wallet turned into a useless scrap of PVC. The hardest call was to Redwood State University. I dialed the financial aid office on a Thursday morning. My hands were shaking, but my voice was pure Harborline metrics. Cold, professional, detached. Redwood State Financial Aid. This is Mrs. Gable. A tired voice answered. Good morning, Mrs. Gable. My name is Emma Ross. I am listed as the primary financial guarantor for a student named Chloe Ross. One moment. Let me pull up the file, she said. I heard typing. Yes, I see you here. Are you calling to make a payment for the graduation hold? We sent an email regarding the outstanding balance. No, I said, I am calling to formally contest the validity of the financial responsibility agreement on file. The typing stopped. Excuse me. I am stating that the electronic signature on the guarantee document dated August 15th is a forgery. I said I did not sign it. I was not in the state of Indiana where the IP address originated on that date. I have travel records and employment records to prove I was in Colorado. Silence. Long, heavy silence. Mrs. Gable was used to parents calling to beg for extensions. She was used to students crying about loan limits. She was not used to this. Ms. Ross, she said, her tone shifting from bored to cautious. That is a very serious accusation. If you are claiming identity theft, we are required to freeze the student's account pending an investigation. This will result in an immediate suspension of all privileges. Chloe will not be able to access her transcripts. She will not be cleared for graduation. I understand the policy, I said. I am instructing you to place that freeze immediately. Furthermore, I am requesting that my email address and phone number be removed from the student's profile. I am not her parent. I am her sister and I am no longer funding this education. Her sister, Mrs. Gable repeated. The word carried a weight of understanding. She had seen parents coddle children, but she knew that when a sibling made a call like this, the bridge wasn't just burned. It had been blown up with dynamite. I see, Mrs. Gable said quietly. I will flag the account for fraud review. You will need to send us a notarized affidavit. It is already in the mail, I said. Thank you for your help. I hung up the phone. I sat back in my chair and stared at the dark screen of my phone. I waited for the explosion. I knew it was coming. I had just cut the power to the entire Ross family grid. The credit cards would be declined. The university account would lock. The flow of easy money had hit a dam made of concrete and rage. But in that moment, sitting in the quiet hum of my office, I didn't feel afraid. For years, I had told myself I was protecting them. I was protecting Chloe from debt. I was protecting Diana from stress. I was protecting Paul from his own inadequacy. But looking at the evidence folder on my desk, I realized I hadn't been protecting them. I had been enabling a crime. I had been the getaway driver who thought she was just giving her family a lift. I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the Denver skyline. The mountains were jagged and sharp against the blue sky. They looked unforgiving. I am done protecting you, I thought, the words ringing in my head like a bell. I am protecting myself and I am going to let the consequences find their own way home. I checked my watch. It was almost noon. The Zoom call, the one where Diana would tell me they didn't want to see my face, was scheduled for Sunday. I smiled. A cold, sharp smile that didn't reach my eyes. Let them tell me not to come. They had no idea that I had already left the building, and I had taken the foundation with me. The fallout from my digital scorched earth campaign was not immediate. It was a slow, creeping silence that lasted exactly 18 hours, followed by a sudden, violent eruption of noise. It started on Friday afternoon. My phone, which sat face down on my desk next to the Ross evidence folder, began to vibrate. It was a short buzz at first. A single text message. Card declined at the grocery store. Must be a chip error. Call the bank ASAP. I have a cart full of food. I did not reply. I took a sip of my lukewarm coffee and continued typing an email to a client. 10 minutes later, another buzz. Emma, it happened again at the gas station. Says card can lead. What did you do? Pick up the phone. 20 minutes later, the buzz became a continuous angry hum. Chloe is trying to pick up her cap and gown. The rental fee bounced. She is crying in the administration office. Fix this now. Are you getting these? Answer me. This is not funny. Emma, your father is trying to call you. I watched the notifications slide onto the lock screen like debris washing up on a beach. I felt a strange detachment, as if I were watching a character in a movie receive these messages. My heart rate did not spike. My palms did not sweat. For the first time in my life, their panic did not trigger my emergency response system. It only triggered my curiosity. At 4 o'clock, the email arrived. It hit my inbox with a high-priority red flag. Subject: Family Zoom. Urgent mandatory attendance from Diana Ross to Emma Ross, Paul Ross, Chloe Ross. We need to speak immediately. I have sent a calendar invite for 5 p.m. Mountain Time. Do not be late. It read less like a family invitation and more like a subpoena. I accepted the invite not because I was afraid, but because I was ready. I spent the hour before the call organizing my desktop. I closed my work tabs. I opened the spreadsheet I had created the night before. I opened the PDF of the forged university document. I arranged them side by side like ammunition on a table at 5 o'clock exactly. I clicked the link. The screen filled with the familiar grid. But unlike the previous calls, there was no pretense of warmth, no fake smiles, no casual chit-chat. Diana was already leaning into the camera. Her face pinched and flushed with a color that clashed with her beige living room walls. She looked like a general whose supply lines had just been cut. Paul sat beside her, looking terrified, his eyes fixed on a point somewhere off camera. Chloe was in a different box, presumably from her apartment in California. Her eyes were red-rimmed and she was aggressively shredding a tissue in her hands. You have a lot of explaining to do, Diana said. It was not a greeting. It was an opening statement. Hello to you too, Mom, I said, leaning back in my chair.
Chloe.
Don't you hi us? Diana snapped. Her voice was sharp enough to cause audio feedback. Do you have any idea what kind of humiliation we have endured today? I stood at the checkout counter at Whole Foods for 20 minutes while the cashier ran that card 3 times. 3 times. Emma, people were staring. I had to leave the cart. I had to walk out like a criminal. And I can't get my gown. Chloe wailed, her voice cracking. The lady at the Registar said there is a financial hold on my account. A hold everyone else was picking up their stuff, and I had to stand there while she told me my guarantor has contested the funds. What does that even mean? It means I stopped paying, I said. The sentence hung in the air. Simple and devastating, Diana blinked. You what? I stopped paying, I repeated. I canceled the credit cards. I removed myself as an authorized user, and I informed the university that I will no longer be funding Chloe's education. You can't do that, Diana sputtered. She looked at Paul for backup, but he just shrank further into his polo shirt. You promised, you committed. We have a plan, Emma. You can't just change the rules 2 weeks before graduation because you are having a bad week at work. It is not about a bad week, I said calmly. It is about the fact that I looked at the statements. Statements? Chloe sniffed, wiping her nose. What statements? The credit card statements, I said. The ones for the card ending in 4098. The one I didn't know existed until 3 days ago. Diana's face went rigid. The flush of anger drained away, replaced by a pale, stony mask. She knew. Of course, she knew, but she did not retreat. She doubled down. "I don't know what you were talking about," Diana said, her voice dropping to a dangerous low register. "We used that card for household emergencies, for things Chloe needs for school. If you are going to nitpick over every penny." "I am not nitpicking pennies." "Mom," I interrupted. "I am talking about $5,000. $5,000? Paul whispered. It was the first time he had spoken. He looked at Diana. You said it was just for books." "Shut up, Paul," Diana hissed without looking at him. She turned her gaze back to the camera, staring me down. "So what?" "We spent a little extra. It has been a hard year. We are family. Since when do we audit each other? You make plenty of money. Emma, you are sitting there in your high-rise apartment judging us for trying to survive. Is that what you call it?" I asked. "Survival?" "Yes," Diana shouted. "We sacrificed everything for you to get where you are. We paid for your piano lessons. We drove you to soccer. We put a roof over your head for 18 years. And now you are going to begrudge your sister a little help. You are ungrateful. That is what you are. Selfish and ungrateful." I felt the old trigger. The word ungrateful usually made my stomach twist with guilt. But today the mechanism was broken. "I am going to share my screen now." I said, "We don't want to see your spreadsheets." Diana scoffed. "I think you do," I said. I clicked the green share screen button. The grid of faces minimized and my compiled evidence took over the display. "Can you see this?" I asked. I highlighted a row in neon yellow. November 4th, I read aloud. Golden State Resort and Spa, $850. Was this for survival? Chloe, was the deep tissue massage necessary for your survival? Chloe's eyes widened on the screen. She stopped shredding the tissue. "I had back pain," she stammered. "From studying, my chair is terrible." "Okay," I said. I scrolled down. December 20th, Tiffany & Company. For $100. A bracelet. "Mom, was this a household emergency?" Diana remained silent. Her jaw set so hard I could see the muscles twitching. February 14th. I continued, my voice steady and cold. The French Laundry, Yville, California. $600 for a dinner for two. Chloe, I assume this was a study group. "You are being a..." Chloe spat out, her face twisting into a sneer. "You don't understand what it is like here. Everyone has money. Everyone goes to these places. I have to fit in. Emma, I can't be the poor girl who stays in the dorm eating ramen. Networking is part of the degree. I am building connections for my future by committing fraud," I asked. "It is not fraud," Chloe screamed. "It is family money. You have it. We need it. Why do you have to be so stingy? You are ruining everything." "It is not family money," I said. "It is my money. I earned it. I worked for it and you stole it." "We did not steal it," Diana interjected, her voice icy. "We borrowed it. We intended to pay you back eventually." "With what?" I asked. "With the money from the job Chloe doesn't have. With the retirement savings Dad doesn't have." "How dare you?" Diana whispered. "How dare you speak to us like this after all we have done?" "I am speaking to you like this because I finally hired a lawyer," I said. The word lawyer acted like a physical blow. Paul sat up straight. Diana flinched. "A lawyer?" Diana repeated. "You hired a lawyer against your own mother." "I hired a lawyer to protect myself from identity theft," I corrected. "And she was very interested in the document I found on the university portal. The one where someone signed Emma Ross from an IP address in Clearwater." I switched tabs on the shared screen displaying the forged signature. "That is a felony, Mom." I said, "That is not borrowing. That is a federal crime." Diana stared at the screen. For a second, I saw fear. genuine naked fear. But it was quickly swallowed by a wave of defensive rage so potent I could feel it radiating through the internet connection. "Stop sharing the screen," she commanded. I clicked stop share. The grid returned. Diana was standing up now, leaning over the camera, her face distorting in the wide-angle lens. "You listen to me," she said, her voice shaking with fury. "You are going to fix this. You are going to call the bank and tell them it was a mistake. You are going to call the university and release the funds. And you are going to apologize to your sister for making her cry." "No," I said. "Excuse me." "No," I said again. It was easier the second time. "I am not doing any of that. The cards remain closed. The tuition remains unpaid. If Chloe wants to graduate, she can pay the balance herself or you can pay it. Mom, use the money you saved by not paying for your own groceries for the last 3 years. If you do not fix this," Diana said, pointing a finger at the lens, "if you let your sister miss her graduation because of your pettiness, then you are done. Do you hear me? You are not welcome in this house. You are not welcome in this family. We will cut you off completely." She thought she was threatening me with exile. She thought the worst thing that could happen to me was losing them. She didn't realize she was threatening me with the one thing I hadn't been able to give myself: freedom. I looked at her, this woman who had groomed me to be a checkbook, who had turned my love into a line of credit. I looked at Paul, the coward. I looked at Chloe, the parasite, and I felt nothing. No pain, no panic, just an immense airy lightness. "Okay," I said. Diana paused. She hadn't expected that. "Okay, that is it. You are willing to throw away your family over money. I am not throwing you away." I said, "I am just declining the transaction. You will regret this." Diana snarled. "You will be all alone, Emma. No one will love you like we do." "If this is love," I said, reaching for the mouse, "then I think I will be better off without it. Don't you dare hang up on me." Diana screamed. "Emma, I am your mother. You owe me. You owe." I clicked. "Leave meeting." The screaming cut off instantly. The silence rushed back into my apartment, but this time it wasn't heavy. It was clean. It was quiet. I sat there for a moment, listening to the hum of the refrigerator. I looked at my hands. They were steady. My phone started buzzing again, a furious vibrating dance on the desk. I picked it up, looked at the name Mom flashing on the screen, and calmly slid the power button to off. I stood up and walked to the window. The sun had set and the city lights of Denver were twinkling below me. I took a deep breath, filling my lungs with the thin, cold air. They had given me an ultimatum. They thought it was a death sentence. They didn't know it was a pardon. The silence I had embraced after the Zoom call did not last. It was merely the calm before a different kind of storm, one not made of shouting, but of whispers. In the days following my digital severance, Diana launched what I can only describe as a PR campaign. If she had applied this much strategic effort to actual employment, she would have been a CEO. Instead, she used her energy to curate a narrative where I was the villain in a tragedy of her own making. It started with the flying monkeys. That is what my therapist, if I had one, would have called them, the extended family. I woke up on Monday morning to a text from Aunt Linda. Linda, who hadn't texted me since my birthday 3 years ago. "Emma, honey, your mom sounds devastated. I know work is stressful, but please don't take it out on Chloe. She is just a baby. You only get one sister. Don't let money ruin blood." I stared at the screen, my thumb hovering over the reply button. I wanted to type, "Did Mom tell you she forged my signature on a federal loan document? Did she tell you about the spa trips and the jewelry?" But I didn't. I knew Diana. She would have spun a story so convincing that the truth would look like a desperate lie. She would have said I was having a breakdown, that I was jealous of Chloe, that I was hoarding my wealth like a dragon while they starved. Then came Uncle Mike. Family is forever, kid. Money comes and goes. Be the bigger person. Fix this. Then a cousin I barely knew heard about the drama. Yikes. Just pay it so we can all have a good time at the party. LOL. It was a barrage of moral policing from people who had never once asked me how I was doing. Never once offered to help me move. Never once sent a card just to say hello. They were the chorus in Diana's Greek tragedy, chanting the lines she had written for them. They didn't care about the truth. They cared about the disruption of the status quo. If I stopped being the ATM, the uncomfortable reality of the Ross family finances would spill over onto them. Someone might ask them for a loan. I deleted the messages. I didn't block them. Not yet. I needed to see the blast radius. Then came the social media assault. I don't follow Chloe closely on Facebook, but I have a burner account I use for market research at work. I logged in on Tuesday night, unable to stop myself. There it was, a status update posted 2 hours ago. Funny how some people only want to play the good big sister role when there is an audience, but when it comes to actually showing up crickets, real family doesn't have conditions. Graduation drama, fake heartbroken below it. A comment from Diana. Stay strong, baby girl. We know the truth. God will provide. And below that, dozens of sad face reactions and comments from neighbors and church friends sending prayers. Ignore the negativity. You are a star, Chloe. I felt a physical ache in my chest, a hollow scraping sensation. It wasn't just anger. It was loneliness. Deep, profound isolation. I was the one who had been robbed. I was the one whose identity had been stolen. I was the one sitting in an empty apartment in Denver eating cereal for dinner because I was too anxious to cook. Yet, in the public court of Clearwater opinion, I was the monster. They were rewriting my history in real time. All those years of paying bills, of buying cars, of funding vacations I didn't go on erased, replaced by this singular moment of refusal at work. I tried to maintain the facade of the high-functioning analyst. I wore my crisp blazers. I sat in meetings. I nodded at spreadsheets. But my brain was enveloped in a fog. I started making mistakes. Small ones. A decimal point here. A missed email there. Emma, you okay? Sarah asked me on Wednesday after I zoned out during a presentation. You look like you haven't slept in a week. Just family stuff, I muttered. Graduation season. Ah, she nodded sympathetically. Exciting time. Yeah, I said exciting. I wasn't sleeping. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the notification bell. I dreamt of emails from collections agencies. I dreamt of a credit score that kept ticking down number by number until it hit 0. I would wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning, heart pounding, sweating, reaching for my phone to check my bank app just to make sure the balance hadn't vanished. On Thursday evening, the pressure became almost unbearable. I was sitting at my kitchen island staring at the portal for Redwood State University. I had Unlin account, but I still had the login. The balance was sitting there glaring at me in red font. Outstanding balance. $14 to $150. Status overdue. Graduation hold active. My finger hovered over the mouse. It would be so easy. I had the money in my savings. It would wipe out my emergency fund. It would set my house plans back another 2 years. But it would make the noise stop. I could pay it. I could make the red text turn black. I could make Aunt Linda stop texting me. I could make Diana stop posting passive-aggressive Bible verses. I could go back to being the good Emma, the reliable Emma, just one last time. That is what the addict brain whispered. Just pay it and then you can walk away clean. I was inches away from re-entering my routing number when my phone buzzed. Not a text, a call. It was Joyce. Joyce was a senior project manager at Harbor Line. She was 60, Divorced, with a laugh that sounded like sandpaper and whiskey. We weren't close friends, but we often shared the elevator ride down to the parking garage. "Hey kid," she said when I answered. "I am down at the Blackbird. I saw you leaving the building looking like someone shot your dog. Come have a drink. You are buying." I hesitated. "I have a lot of work." "The work will be there tomorrow. Your sanity might not be. Get down here." I went. The bar was dark and smelled of hops and polished wood. Joyce was sitting in a booth nursing a bourbon. She waved me over. "You look terrible," she said cheerfully. "Sit." I sat. I ordered a gin and tonic. And then, because I was exhausted, because I was lonely, because the alcohol hit my empty stomach like a sledgehammer, I told her everything. I told her about the credit cards, the spa trips, the forged signature, the Zoom call, the texts from Aunt Linda. When I finished, I expected her to be shocked. I expected her to say, "Oh my God, that is horrible." Instead, Joyce took a slow sip of her drink and nodded. "Classic," she said. "Classic." I blinked. "The extractor dynamic," Joyce said. "I have a brother like that. Charming as hell. Convinced the whole family he was a misunderstood genius. I paid his rent for 10 years. Paid for his rehab twice. Paid for his business startups that were just schemes to buy new trucks. What happened?" I asked. "I cut him off." Joyce said when I was 45, he stole my checkbook to pay a gambling debt. I realized then that I wasn't helping him. I was just financing his slow suicide and mine. "Did your family hate you?" "Oh, they despised me." Joyce laughed. A dry, harsh sound. "My mom told me I was dead to her. Said I had a cold heart. My cousins called me a how did you handle it?" I realized something. Joyce leaned forward, her eyes sharp. "They didn't hate me, Emma. They hated that I changed the script. They needed a villain to explain why the golden boy was failing. If it wasn't my fault for not helping, then it might be his fault for being a screw-up, and they couldn't handle that reality." She pointed a finger at me. "You are not the villain here. You are the bank. And when the bank closes, the customers riot. It is not personal. It is economics. I almost paid it tonight," I confessed, looking down at my drink. "The tuition? Just to make it stop." Joyce reached across the table and grabbed my hand. Her grip was surprisingly strong. "Do not dare," she said. "If you pay that bill, you are telling them that their abuse has a price tag. You are telling them that if they scream loud enough, if they hurt you bad enough, you will fold. You pay that bill and you are signing up for another decade of this. Is that what you want? 10 more years of being the ATM?" "No," I whispered. "Then let them scream," Joyce said. "Let them post on Facebook. Let them hate you. Being the bad guy in the story of toxic people is a badge of honor." I drove home that night with Joyce's voice ringing in my ears. Being the bad guy in the story of toxic people is a badge of honor. I walked into my apartment. I went straight to my desk. I opened my laptop. I didn't log into the university portal. Instead, I opened my spreadsheet. I highlighted the total column, the sum of every dollar I had sent them over the last 6 years. The tuition, the rent, the car payments, the loans, the stolen credit card charges. The number was staggering. It was the price of a small house. It was the price of my freedom. I printed that single page. Just the total. I took a piece of tape and stuck it to the wall right above my monitor. $184. $250 and sign. I stared at it. That wasn't just money. That was my blood. That was my time. That was every vacation I didn't take. Every nice dinner I skipped. Every hour of overtime I worked while my eyes burned. Every time I felt guilty, I would look at that number. Every time Aunt Linda texted me about family obligations, I would look at that number. It was my anchor. It was my map. Every dollar of that sum was a reason why I couldn't go back. The next morning, Friday, a new email arrived from Redwood State University. Subject: Final Notice, Graduation Eligibility. Ms. Ross, this is a formal notification regarding the account of Chloe Ross, as the outstanding balance of $1,450 in tons remains unpaid, and the financial responsibility agreement is currently under fraud review based on your affidavit. The student has been removed from the graduation ceremony list. Please note, the university takes allegations of identity fraud very seriously. We are legally obligated to cooperate with any external investigations, as you are the contesting party. All further legal correspondence regarding the validity of the debt will be directed to you. I read the email twice. The fraud review. This was the pivot point. If I had paid the bill last night, the review would have stopped. The university wouldn't care where the money came from. As long as the balance was zero, the investigation would have been dropped. Diana would have gotten away with it. Chloe would have walked across the stage smiling, having learned absolutely nothing except that her sister was a boundless resource. But I hadn't paid. And now the machine of bureaucracy was turning its gears toward the truth. I realized with a jolt that this wasn't just about money anymore. It was about legal culpability. If I admitted to helping them now, or if I paid the bill to make it go away, I would be effectively admitting that the signature was valid. I would be retroactively consenting to the fraud. If I paid that bill, I would be an accessory to my own identity theft. I sat back, the adrenaline clearing the fog in my brain. I wasn't just protecting my bank account. I was protecting my citizenship. I was protecting my clean record. I was protecting my future from being permanently entangled with their crimes. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Diana. You are destroying this family. I hope you are happy. I looked at the number on the wall. $184,250. Then I looked at the text. I didn't feel happy. Happiness was too light a word for the grim steel reinforced resolve that was settling into my bones. I felt safe. For the first time in my life, the walls I was building weren't to keep people out. They were to keep me from falling apart. I typed a reply to Diana. It was the first time I had responded in 4 days. I am not destroying the family. I'm just refusing to pay for the demolition. I hit send. Then I turned off the phone, picked up my purse, and went to work. The nightmare wasn't over. I knew that the graduation was 2 days away. The climax was coming. But as I walked out into the Denver sunshine, I knew one thing. I wasn't going to be the one who blinked. Monday morning arrived with the precision of a guillotine blade. The emotional fog that had clouded my judgment for the better part of a decade had lifted, replaced by a clarity so sharp it almost felt dangerous. I dressed not for a day of data analysis at Harborline Metrics, but for a day of executing a strategy that had been finalized over a weekend of silence and black coffee. At 9 o'clock sharp, I logged into a secure video conference. This was not a family Zoom call. This was a meeting I had requested with the Redwood State University administration. On my screen, 2 faces appeared. One was Mrs. Goshgable, the financial aid officer I had spoken to previously, looking tired and weary. Beside her was a man I hadn't met, wearing a stiff gray suit and a tie that looked too tight. His display name read Marcus Sterling, Dean of Student Conduct and Ethics. Good morning, Ms. Ross, Mr. Sterling said. His voice was guarded, the tone of a man who is used to dealing with wealthy parents threatening lawsuits when their children fail. Introduction to Biology. We have reviewed the affidavit you submitted regarding the student Chloe Ross. Thank you for meeting with me, I said. My voice was calm, modulated to the exact frequency of professional detachment. I assume you have also reviewed the digital evidence attached to the affidavit. We have, Sterling said. He glanced down at a file on his desk. It is substantial. It is conclusive. I corrected gently. I shared my screen. I didn't ask for permission this time. I simply took control of the visual narrative. This, I said, highlighting a timestamp log, is the electronic signature on the Financial Responsibility Agreement dated August 15th of last year. As you can see, the IP address originates from a residential Comcast account in Clearwater, Indiana. I switched tabs. And this, I continued, is my employment time card and building access log from Harborline Metrics in Denver, Colorado for that same date. I swiped into my office at 8:30 in the morning and swiped out at 6:15 in the evening. Unless I have discovered the secret to teleportation, it is physically impossible for me to have signed that document in Indiana. Mrs. Scable shifted uncomfortably in her chair. Ms. Ross, we see the discrepancy. However, it is not uncommon for family members to share login details for administrative ease. Sharing login details is a policy violation, I said. Forging a signature to secure federal funding is a crime. There is a difference between convenience and fraud. Mrs. Gable. Mr. Sterling cleared his throat. Ms. Ross, if we accept your premise that this signature was unauthorized, it places the university in a difficult position. It means the student, Chloe Ross, obtained enrollment and services under false pretenses. This triggers an automatic review by the Academic Integrity Board. I understand, I said. The consequences could be severe. Sterling pressed, watching my face closely for a crack in the armor. We are talking about expulsion. We are talking about a permanent mark on her academic record. If the university decides to pursue this as theft of services, it could become a legal matter. He was testing me. He wanted to see if I was the angry sister who would blink when the stakes got real. He wanted to see if I would panic and say, "Oh, never mind. Just let me pay it so she doesn't get in trouble." I looked him dead in the eye through the camera lens. Mr. Sterling, I said, I am not asking you to punish my sister. I am simply informing you that I am not the person liable for this debt. How the university chooses to handle the student who committed the fraud is a matter of your internal policy. My only concern is removing my name from a contract I did not sign. The silence that followed was heavy. Sterling nodded slowly. He realized then that I wasn't bluffing. I wasn't playing a game of chicken. I had simply left the table. Very well, Sterling said. We will require a wet signature on a formal declaration of non-liability. Once we receive that, we will sever the financial link. Your email and phone number will be purged from the system. I have already overnight the document, I said. You should have it by noon. And the outstanding balance? Mrs. Gable asked weakly. It is $14,250. That, I said, is a conversation you need to have with Chloe Ross or perhaps her parents. I ended the call. My heart was beating a little faster than normal. But it wasn't fear. It was the adrenaline of a successful maneuver. I had just checkmated the university. They could no longer pressure me without acknowledging their own negligence in accepting a fraudulent signature. 2 hours later, my phone rang. It was Elena Vance, my lawyer. Emma, she said, her voice crisp and efficient. I just got off the phone with the fraud department at Chase Bank. They are done with their preliminary investigation. And I asked, gripping the edge of my desk. They are siding with us, Elena said. The pattern of spending, the location data, and the affidavit were enough. They are issuing a provisional credit for the full amount $4,872 on the dormant card. They are also scrubbing the authorized user history from your credit report. I let out a breath I felt like I had been holding for 3 days. So it is gone. The debt is gone. From your record? Yes. Elena said. But the money is still gone, Emma. The bank is going to eat the loss for now, but they will open their own investigation to recover the funds. That means they will be looking at the people who spent the money. She paused, letting the implications sink in. This brings us to the decision point we discussed. Elena continued, we have enough right now to file a criminal complaint with the Clearwater Police Department. We have the bank's findings. We have the university logs. If we file, the district attorney will likely pick it up. Identity theft over $50,000 is a serious felony. Your mother could be looking at actual prison time. Chloe, too, as an accomplice. I stared out the window at the Denver skyline. The sun was cutting through the clouds, illuminating the jagged peaks of the Rockies. Prison. I imagined Diana in a cell. I imagined the orange jumpsuit. I imagined the shame, the scandal, the absolute destruction of the life she had curated so carefully. And then I imagined Chloe, 22 years old, spoiled, yes. Narcissistic? Yes. But a criminal mastermind?
No.
She was a product of her environment. She was a monster made in Diana's image. Did I want them to rot in a cage? No, I said quietly. No, Elena asked. You want to drop it? I don't want to prosecute, I said. I don't want to be the one who puts handcuffs on them. That feels vindictive. I don't want revenge, Elena. I just want out. Okay, Elena said, and I could hear the approval in her voice. That is a valid strategy. We take the civil defense route. We protect the shield, but we don't swing the sword. Exactly, I said. But listen to me closely, Emma. Elena's tone hardened. By not prosecuting, you are leaving them to the mercy of the systems they tried to cheat. The bank might go after them civilly. The university certainly will. You are stepping out of the way, which means you are no longer the buffer. When the consequences hit, they are going to hit your family directly, and they are going to blame you for not stopping it. They already blame me, I said. At least this way. I am not the one holding the bill. Fair enough. Elena said, I will draft the final separation letters. We are officially closing the file on Emma Ross as the family bank. Congratulations, Emma. You are a free woman. I hung up the phone and looked at the number taped to my wall.
1842.
It didn't look like a debt anymore. It looked like a tuition fee I had paid to the School of Hard Knocks. I had graduated. The rest of the week passed in a surreal silence. The texts from Aunt Linda stopped. The Facebook posts stopped. The silence from Clearwater was absolute. It was the silence of a bunker before the bombs fall. They knew I had talked to the school. They knew I had talked to the bank. They were waiting to see if the threats were real. They didn't have to wait long. 7 days before the graduation ceremony, the hammer fell. I received a copy of the email because I was still CC'd on the administrative chain. A lingering ghost in the system I was exiting. Subject urgent. Graduation status. Update for Chloe Ross. Dear Ms. Ross, we regret to inform you that due to the unresolved financial balance of $14,250 and the pending academic integrity inquiry regarding your sponsorship documentation, you have been removed from the list of eligible graduates for the class of 2024. Your cap and gown reservation has been canceled. You will not be permitted to walk in the ceremony. Your diploma will be withheld until the financial and disciplinary investigations are concluded. Security will be notified to deny access to the staging area on graduation day. Sincerely, Office of the Registrar, Redwood State University. I read the email. I read it again. Security will be notified. It was brutal. It was humiliating. It was final. I knew that at that exact moment in a house in Clearwater, Indiana, chaos was erupting. I could imagine the screaming. I could imagine Diana throwing a vase. I could imagine Chloe collapsing on the floor, her carefully curated Instagram life crumbling into dust. They had the email. They knew it was over. And yet my phone did not ring. There were no texts, no demands, no threats. Why? Because they were terrified. For the first time in their lives, They realized I wasn't playing by their rules. I wasn't reacting to their emotions. I was operating on a plane of legal reality that they couldn't manipulate with tears or guilt trips. They knew that if they pushed me now, if they screamed at me, I might change my mind about the criminal prosecution. I held the nuclear codes, and they knew it. So they stayed silent. They were betting on the last-minute save. They were betting that on graduation day, when the reality set in, I would break. They thought I would be sitting by the phone waiting for them to beg so I could swoop in and be the hero one last time. They were wrong. I wasn't waiting for them to call. I was done waiting. On Saturday night, the eve of the graduation, that wouldn't happen. I sat at my computer. I opened my calendar. I created a new event titled Financial Reality. Final call time. Sunday 2:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 11:00 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. That was exactly 1 hour before the ceremony was supposed to begin. The moment when they should have been taking photos in the gown I didn't pay for. The moment when they should have been driving to the stadium in the car I stopped leasing. I added the attendees: Diana Ross, Paul Ross, Chloe Ross. I pasted the Zoom link into the body of the invite. I didn't add a message. I didn't add an agenda. I hit send. I watched the invite fly out into the digital ether. Usually a meeting request is just a mundane administrative task. But this felt different. This felt like signing a treaty or perhaps a Declaration of Independence. I wasn't going to call them to explain. I wasn't going to call them to gloat. I was giving them one last chance to look me in the eye and see the person they had tried to erase. I stood up and walked to my closet. I picked out my outfit for tomorrow. A sharp navy blazer. A crisp white shirt. It was my armor. I went to bed early. I slept soundly without a single nightmare about credit scores or collection agencies. The next morning, I woke up, made coffee, and sat on my balcony. The air was cool and crisp. I checked my phone. The calendar invite had been accepted. All three of them. They were coming. They probably thought this was the moment I would cave. They probably thought this meeting was me announcing that I had fixed it, that I had wired the money, that the nightmare was over. I took a sip of coffee and smiled at the mountains. They had no idea. The nightmare wasn't ending. For them, it was just beginning. For me, it was finally time to wake up. It was 2:00 on a Sunday afternoon. In a parallel universe, one where I was still the obedient, faceless banker for the Ross family, my sister would be lining up in a gymnasium. Right now, she would be adjusting her cap, smoothing out her gown, and preparing to walk across a stage to the sound of polite applause. But in this universe, the one I had reclaimed with a folder full of evidence and a spine of steel, the only stage was my laptop screen. I sat at my mahogany table in Denver. The sun was streaming in, bright and indifferent. I had a glass of water next to me. My hands were folded on the table, still and calm. I clicked, "Start meeting." The black window expanded. The camera light turned green, waiting for participants. They did not make me wait. They were already there, hovering in the digital waiting room. Desperate, I admitted them. The screen flickered and suddenly my apartment was filled with the heavy, suffocating atmosphere of a living room in Clearwater, Indiana. They were all squeezed onto one couch. It was a tableau of misery. Diana was in the center wearing a dress that looked too formal for a Zoom call, but too wrinkled for a celebration. Her face was puffy. Her eyes narrowed into slits of pure, distilled rage. Paul sat on her left, hunched over, his hands wringing together in his lap. He looked like a man waiting for a sentencing hearing. And Chloe, my sister, sat on the right. She wasn't wearing the designer outfit she had likely planned. She was wearing sweatpants and a t-shirt. Her face was blotchy, her hair pulled back in a messy bun. Behind them, hanging on the coat rack by the door, was the graduation gown. It was still in the plastic dry cleaning bag. The black fabric looked like a shroud. The silence that stretched between us was thick enough to choke on. Well, Diana broke at first. Her voice was not a scream this time. It was a low, trembling viber. Are you happy now, Emma? Is this what you wanted? Look at your sister. She grabbed Chloe's arm and yanked her forward toward the camera. Look at her. Diana hissed. Today was supposed to be her day. We should be in the car. We should be parking at the stadium. Instead, we are sitting here humiliated because you decided to play God with our lives. I didn't play God, I said softly. I just stopped playing the fool. You ruined it, Chloe sobbed. It was a raw, ugly sound. This wasn't the manipulative whining I was used to. This was the sound of a child who had been told for the first time that the world does not revolve around them. You actually ruined it. I can't believe you did this. My friends are texting me asking where I am. What am I supposed to tell them? That my sister is a jealous witch who cut me off? Tell them the truth, I said. Tell them you didn't pay your tuition. I couldn't pay it. Chloe screamed. You know I couldn't. You always paid it. That was the deal. There was never a deal, Chloe. I said. There was just an assumption. An assumption that I would set myself on fire to keep you warm forever. It is just money. Diana slammed her hand on the coffee table. The sound distorted in the microphone. It is just numbers on a screen to you. You have so much of it. You sit there in your fancy apartment with your high-paying job, and you begrudge us a few thousand to finish what we started. If you had just clicked a button, one button, Emma, we would be at the ceremony right now. All of this pain, it is your choice. It is your fault. I looked at them. I looked at the way Diana's jaw jutted out, the way Paul wouldn't meet my eyes, the way Chloe curled into herself like a wounded animal. For years, that accusation would have crippled me. It is your fault. I would have scrambled to fix it. I would have apologized. I would have opened my wallet just to make the yelling stop. But today, the words just bounced off me. You are right, Mom. I said it was my choice. I chose not to be a victim of fraud anymore. Diana froze. Don't you use that word. I spoke to the university, I said. My voice was steady, cutting through the static. I spoke to the bank. I spoke to the fraud department. I showed them the IP addresses. I showed them the signatures that weren't mine. They know everything. They know about the cards. They know about the loans. Paul looked up then. His face was gray. Emma, you told them. I had to, Dad. I said, because if I didn't, I would be liable. And I am done being liable for debts I didn't incur. You traitor, Diana whispered. You went to outsiders. You exposed your own family to strangers. You exposed me to the federal government when you forged my signature. I countered. You made me an accomplice to a crime. Did you think about me then? Did you think about my career, my future? Or did you only think about getting what you wanted? We did it for you, Diana shouted, her logic twisting into a grotesque knot. We wanted you to be proud. We wanted the Ross family to be successful. Chloe's success is your success. It is all the same pot. It is not the same pot, I said. It is my pot and you emptied it. Please, Paul interrupted. His voice was cracked, pathetic. Emma, please, just is there any way to fix it even now? If you call them, maybe they can let her walk late. Maybe we can get the diploma later. Just help us this one last time. We promise after this it will be different. We will pay you back. I will pick up extra shifts. Chloe will get a job. Just help us out of this hole. We are drowning here. I looked at my father. I felt a pang of pity, sharp and brief. He was a drowning man. Yes, but he was drowning because he refused to stand up in shallow water. Dad, I asked gently, how many times have you said this is the last time? He blinked, his mouth opening and closing. Was it the last time when you needed the truck fixed? I asked. Was it the last time when Mom needed the dental work? Was it the last time when Chloe needed the deposit for the apartment? Was it the last time when you took the credit card to the gas station? The room in Clearwater went silent. In 10 years, I said, has later ever actually arrived? Paul looked down at his hands. He didn't answer. He couldn't. See, Diana sneered. She is heartless. Look at her, Paul. She enjoys this. She likes seeing us beg. I don't enjoy it, I said. It breaks my heart, but I'm not doing it anymore. I have officially separated my finances from yours. The bank accounts are unlin. The credit cards are closed. The university has removed me as a guarantor. It is done. Chloe let out a fresh wail, burying her face in a cushion. My life is over. I can't get my degree. I can't get a job. You killed my future. Your future is waiting for you to pay for it, Chloe, I said. Just like I paid for mine, just like everyone else does. Diana stood up. She walked up to the camera, her face filling the frame. Her eyes were cold, hard stones. If you do this, she said, her voice dropping to a whisper that was more terrifying than her shouting. If you hang up this call without fixing this, don't you ever come back here. Do you understand me? You are not welcome in this house. You are not welcome at Christmas. You are not welcome when your father dies. We will scrub you out of the photos. We will forget you ever existed. This family has no room for people who turn their backs on their own blood. It was the ultimate threat, the nuclear option. She was threatening me with orphanhood. I looked at her. I looked at the woman who gave birth to me, and I realized she didn't see a daughter. She saw a defective appliance. Mom, I said, you proved that a long time ago. Diana blinked. What? You don't want me? I said, you want my routing number. You want my credit score. You want the cushion I provide. But you don't want me. You haven't asked me how I am in 5 years. You don't know the name of my best friend. You don't know what I do at work. You only call when the bill is due. I took a deep breath. You say you will cut me off. I shook my head, a sad smile touching my lips. Mom, you can't fire me. I already quit. You will regret this. Diana spat. You will be alone. And when you are sick or sad or old, you will have no one because you chose money over love. No, I said firmly. I chose respect over exploitation. And if that means I am alone for a while, then I will be alone. At least I will be safe. I looked at Chloe. She had stopped crying and was watching me with a mixture of hatred and shock. Good luck, Chloe, I said. I mean that. I hope you figure it out. I hope you find a way to stand on your own 2 feet. It is scary at first, but it is better than standing on someone else's neck. Go to hell, Chloe whispered. I have been there, I said. It was in your living room. I moved my mouse to the red button. Emma, Paul cried out. Don't. I am still your daughter on the birth certificate, I said, my voice ringing with finality. I will always be that. But I am no longer the savings account under the floorboards. I am closed for business. I looked at them one last time. The anger, the fear, the entitlement. Goodbye, I said, and I clicked. Leave meeting. The screen went black. The sound of Diana's fury was cut off instantly. The image of the shroud-like graduation gown vanished. My apartment was quiet. I sat there for a long moment staring at the dark reflection in my monitor. I waited for the crushing guilt. I waited for the panic attack. I waited for the urge to call them back and beg for forgiveness. But it didn't come. Instead, I felt my shoulders drop. I felt my lungs expand, taking in a breath that went deeper than any breath I had taken in years. It was over. The anchor was cut. The weight was gone. My phone on the desk remained silent. I had blocked their numbers 5 minutes before the call started. I stood up. My legs felt a little shaky, but strong. I walked over to the wall and ripped the piece of paper down, the one that said $184. $250 one. I crumpled it into a ball. I walked to the window and opened it. The air of Denver rushed in, dry, thin, and filled with sunshine. Below me, the city was alive. Cars were moving. People were walking. Life was continuing. I wasn't a bad daughter. I wasn't a savior. I was just Emma. And for the first time in my 32 years, as I looked out at the jagged, beautiful horizon of the Rocky Mountains, I realized that the view didn't cost me a cent. It was mine. The future was mine. And no one, absolutely no one, had the password to it but me. I closed my eyes and let the sun hit my face. I was free.